true. You're holding your secrets for way too long. This can't keep going on. With every lie, they keep on hurting you, getting away with everything they do. This can't keep going on. No, we're gonna find them, and I'm gonna fight for you. They better start hiding. We'll be running with the lions, lions. We'll be running with the lions, lions. They can't run, they can't hide. We won't stop until they're down. We'll be running with the lions, lions.
Hello, everyone, and happy Sunday. Welcome to another episode of Gloves Off. So I am excited because today I'm going to actually interview one of my childhood friends. So it's not often we get to interview somebody we've known as a child. And, that's really exciting for me because Danielle and I have known each other since high school. And as life takes its toll, we kind of lost touch with each other. And then kind of wound up reconvening at a 30-year high school reunion, which is amazing. And then ever since then, our friendship has just flourished because we realized that we have a lot in common. And so today our conversation is going to be about friendship and frequencies and a lot of really interesting things. But before we get into that, I want to thank all of you who have been watching Gloves Off for the return views, because just recently I found out that we have over 10,500 viewers, which is a huge milestone, and I'm so excited and grateful. So for those of you who are new, Gloves Off is a show about people who show up authentically in this world and who are courageous enough to shift old paradigms and create new patterns of thinking. So I often will have guests on the show who really don't subscribe to the conventional thoughts and programs that we've been pre-programmed to think. So these are people who are courageous enough to strip their gloves off and, show up without their ego and be authentic. But before we get into today's show, I want to thank our sponsor from the very beginning, Elevated CPA. And if you've watched Doug's interview, he said something really important, because if you are a small business owner and you are doing your own taxes, you're almost a setup to get audited by the IRS, because the IRS knows that most business owners will actually over-report their expenses, under-report their income, and they're watching for that. All right, everyone, welcome back. So I am so excited to get into this conversation with Danielle. So let's hear it for Danielle Lindberg. Well, hello, Danielle, and welcome to Gloves Off.
Hey, Kopana. I'm so excited to be here.
I know, I'm so excited because you have just been a real big support system for me just ever since I first started doing this show. So now we're like, 15, 16 episodes in. So it's really great to have you on.
Thanks. No, it's definitely the highlight of my Sunday. I always look forward to Sunday. I'm like, 9 p.m. Kopana, yay.
Well, this is funny because, Danielle, you're very regimented about like your sleep schedule and stuff. So when I first found out you were actually staying up to watch my show, I was like, wow, I feel very privileged that you're actually doing this.
No, I really enjoy it. And plus you have covered so many different topics. So it's very interesting because you can't just put you in a box, right? I think you definitely can't put you in a box. And so I'm always learning. No matter who's on, I learn something. So it's very good.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, I feel like I'm really blessed to meet so many amazing people with so many different ways of thinking. And I just love that because I think for too long we've been stuck in this paradigm where we all have to be like each other and just sort of like I like to say it's some version of the Stepford Wives, like we have been trained to conform for so many years. So we've been trained to all do the same kind of things. And I like to put it in the box of like, we're all trained to go to school, to get some sort of corporate job where we get some sort of benefits and invest in our 401k, and then we die. I'm like, what is this program? This is not the way we should be predetermined to live. We are the creators of our own life. And that's why I'm so excited about our conversation today. So we're talking about frequency, and we had talked about this. Friendship is a frequency. So, and I've noticed this so much in my life that friendships, when we are aligned or whatever energy or frequency I'm in at the time we meet, they tend to work really well. For me personally, I feel like I vibrate to another frequency level quickly, and then people fall out of my life. And for years, I just thought there was something wrong with me. And I recognize now this is part of the process. So I'd really love to kind of hear your thoughts on that.
Well, not only is it part of the process, unfortunately, we don't tune into our intuition often, right? So we intuitively can walk in a room, sense, you meet people immediately that you don't vibe with, right? And that's even the term we use. I don't with them. Nothing's wrong with them necessarily. I just don't care for them. You can't even put your finger on it. Well, it's because each one of us have, some people say aura, but from a more scientific perspective, it's actually called a biosphere. So it's a torrent field that reaches 5 to 6 feet out sideways and 2 to 3 feet above us and below us, that we carry all of our information, our stuff, all of our emotions, our thoughts, our experiences in that biosphere. And so life takes a toll. And if somebody has unresolved stuff, that biosphere translates to noise. When you're in alignment with yourself, when you work on your emotions and your wounds, those frequencies are harmonic. So that's why when you meet somebody, you can jive with them because you feel their peace, they're grounded, they've worked on their self. But a lot of times we override our gut feeling and we see other people attracted to them. So we think we're in the wrong for not wanting a relationship with them.
That is such a great point because I would say that I've experienced this most of my life. I mean, have you ever been where, in a group of people where everybody's like, oh my God, so and so's amazing, so and so's amazing. And I'm like, I am just not feeling, whatever. Like, I'm not trying to judge people, but I'm just not feeling that resonance with that person. And then I used to very often make myself wrong in those situations. Like, what is wrong with me? But I think I've always been a very energetically sensitive human being. So I think if you're not in the receiving aspect of that sensitive energy, you may be sort of seeing that person from a different standpoint. I always kind of seen people from their core, and I don't know, I can see their wounds, I can feel their energies. So I always was very specific about who I hung out with.
Yeah, definitely empath, right?
Yes.
Definitely. And that is a beautiful quality. It could also be a detriment, as you know, because then if you pick up on them and you want to fix them, which I have that in me. So I've been working hard on that boundary.
Well,
But,
I've done that too. Good Lord. It's a really hard transition to make because that's the empath in us wants to help
mhm.
everybody, and then we get stuck. The interesting thing is that I think you can want to help everyone and then start to understand that you can only choose, you can only help certain people because, again, there's free will. They cannot be helped if they don't want to be helped. So that's where I've just decided I'm not going to enable people. If they want to be helped, I'm happy to help them. If they don't want to be helped, well, it's their job to save themselves.
That's a good point. And also, we often forego our own health in lieu of helping someone else. And again, that is something an empath has to learn. But I think if you're not an empath, you, like you said, to your point, perspective is totally different. So what you're looking for in a friendship is very different. What you want, the type of relationship is different. Like an empath usually wants deep dive friendships. They
Yeah.
don't want superficial. They're not looking for a friend to pull them out of a hole. They do that on their own. Right? So it is different. So you
Those
definitely
are
have a different attraction.
so many great points because I think in this world we're also taught to be shameful about being selfish. So that's another big paradigm shift that I think needs to occur. So we have all been taught that if we take care of ourselves, we are selfish. And so I'm really glad that, this whole self-love concept has come about because it's not an act of being selfish if you're taking care of, when you said health, it's not only, it's emotional, it's mental, it's spiritual, it's physical, because those things are not separate buckets. They're all interrelated. And if your emotional health is suffering, the rest will suffer as well.
Totally. And it's funny because when we're on a plane and they tell you to put your oxygen mask on first before you put your kids, nobody's yelling, you're selfish, right? It's a given that you have to meet your basic needs in order to show up for somebody else. So
Mhm.
it should be the same for our relationships. And,
Right.
but you're right. Societal rules and norms, and especially as a female, we can be labeled as hard and witchy and all the things, right? So it's that battle and the fine line. And also, I think you could agree, based on where you are at in your own life,
Hmm.
where you're at with your own insecurities or transitions or growth, you will tend to allow and overlook things that you normally wouldn't if you were in a different, stronger, better, more healing place. So
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's really the journey. We find out these things, we find out what's not in alignment. We begin to trust our intuition more. We start to just get more grounded. We become more powerful, I feel, as time goes on as beings to understand what's going on around us. Because I just know when I was a kid and even really probably up until 5 or 6 years ago, I just didn't understand all these frequencies and things I was feeling. I was like, what is going on? And I also didn't have people that I could talk to about this. So the beautiful thing is in life, I've attracted more of like-minded people, and I actually have people that I can actually discuss this with. So it makes it a lot easier.
totally, because a lot of people think you're the crazy one, right? If you express some of this. But what's really interesting is, for a long time, people called this woo woo, right? But more and more science is proving this is legit. So Ellen McCusick, for instance, she's done like decades worth of work with biofield tuning. She uses tuning forks specifically, but she's done so many studies and she's collaborated with people to prove time and time again that we have this stuff in our biosphere and we can actually use different frequency modalities to heal, to clear that stuck stuff, just like a massage therapist can work that knot in your back. So it is really interesting. And I think it makes it more accessible for people who might have been turned off by different healing modalities when science is involved.
I would totally agree, especially for like the medical community and stuff. People were so heavily based in science. And I would say, even for me as a physician, when I started to understand that there is root in science, it definitely made more. I already believed in the concepts, but it made it easier for me to understand because my basics are in science. So I was like, oh, this actually makes sense. Like, we talk about this quantum fields and entanglement and, now these solfeggio beats and all of those binaural beats, all of those things are becoming very, I would say mainstream now.
Yeah, I don't know if you've heard. I think it's so amazing. I think I read this week that Ligeti's atmospheres, that music, scientists have been studying because women with breast cancer are getting cured just by listening to it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's pretty impressive. So let's talk about frequencies a little bit more. I want to kind of deep dive into the concept. So, I think many of us who watch this show are probably really going to already be familiar with the concepts of vibration, low vibration, high vibration. So, can you explain this in terms of frequency?
Sure. So everything has a frequency associated with it. Just like we have fingerprints that are unique to us, we actually have a frequency unique to us. A cucumber has a frequency. Every living entity and even colors have frequencies. So it's think of it as well, not only a fingerprint, but light is a frequency.
Hmm.
So things give off different light or different sound, and that is an energetic field or frequency. So a lot of people can use frequency interchangeably with light or sound or vibration, but it is energy emitted by that thing, and it's unique. But I will say, like, every cucumber has a certain frequency associated with cucumber. So for years, holistic practitioners like chiropractors and other like neuropaths would have very expensive equipment that was similar to, have you had a muscle testing done before? Where
Hmm.
they have you hold something and it's kind of, you're like, how does this even work? Right. Well, that is because there's a frequency. You're holding that thing with a frequency and it either strengthens you or weakens you.
Very cool.
So take it to the next step. The equipment they used to have programmed like a set of frequencies for common allergens or mostly allergens, and that's how they were able to almost allergy test you, but it was more food sensitivity.
Hmm.
Back in the day, those pieces of equipment were like $40,000.
Wow.
And now they have it where you can just get software and anybody could get a subscription or get a Healy device. There's so many different ways. But what it does is it basically sends that signal to your field and then reads how your field interprets it. So if your field doesn't have harmony with it, when you're not in harmony, you produce a wave or a frequency that is erratic. So it's almost like noise. So instead of having this nice sine wave, it's like jumbled dots all over the place, jagged. Um,
And when you're
kind
when you're really sensitive, you can feel that.
yeah,
So when I don't vibe, quote unquote, with people, I feel it's because I can sense that chaotic energy.
yes, that, and also too, listen to this. So if somebody is their wave, say, is over here,
Hmm.
and yours is higher, waves merge. And when it's a decrease, it's not something uplifting. You're not going to feel good about it.
Mm-hmm. That's so true. So I have a question. And
Sure.
so I want to know, do cucumbers all emit the same frequency?
Yes. So,
Like every single cucumber, like they're not
yes,
individually just slightly different?
if it is, if it's different, it's going to be so minuscule, your body would still register it the same.
Interesting.
But people are different because, we have thoughts, emotions, traumas, all of
Mm,
that
okay,
that
that
make
makes sense. Okay,
us unique. And the same for a dog or a cat or a horse.
right.
Right.
That's so
So,
cool. Because even when I got my dog, it was funny that, there's a litter and, he chose me. And
right.
I didn't even really know what I was going to do with it. I mean, I wanted a dog, but I had never had a dog before. And it was just so funny that that one little puppy wouldn't leave my side. And the other ones didn't really care about me so much. Like they were like, whatever, and this one was like, I was like, I don't know, this one likes me.
So what's amazing about animals is they're very energetic beings. I mean, from having a dog, they feel all your feels.
Mm-hmm.
And they tend to, like I said, those waves, those frequencies merge. So my holistic vet said she cannot tell me how many times her human that brings the dog or cat in will have sciatica and the dog or cat develops the same ailment.
Wow. That's really crazy. Now, and one thing I didn't know that I wish I had known a long time ago is you can actually look at somebody's animal or their pet and kind of get a gist of who they are. Because I feel people are really great at putting up facades about who they really are. But if you look at their pet, I think you can tell a lot. So, case in point, like I was, somebody I knew had a very like high maintenance, very like anxious sort of a dog. And I didn't realize that, he was actually hiding a lot of this anxiety, but was putting forward this front of calmness, which of course I resonated with in the beginning, but upon deeper introspection, realized that it's a facade. So it's so interesting that animals will really portray what you are. And I've even watched the change in my dog as I've seen my evolution has increased. He used to be more anxious, more erratic, erratic. And so, I've watched him calm down and be so much more even keeled. And that transformation has been in conjunction with mine.
So let me ask you, does he love your cloud mat?
He does. He does.
So that's so cloud mats, when I do my tuning forks, when I do Healy, when I do AO scan, when I do tongue drum, any frequency that is uplifting, he could be in the backyard hunting lizards. But if he hears me break out certain modalities, he comes jetting in and will lay at my feet and just soak it up.
It's so crazy. They said that when I was like really looking into the cloud because I really wanted it for a sense of well-being and, really just promoting my own health, etc. And they said that. And I thought maybe it's possible. Oh, this dog, it doesn't matter where he is. The minute I get that, he actually, before I even turn it on, he knows what it is. And he'll come from wherever and somewhere else, and he's there. It's crazy.
Yeah, so you're going to laugh. When I was doing that certification class for tuning forks, I had to demonstrate on people.
Mm-hmm.
My dog would start crying that he wanted to be
Oh my
worked
God.
on.
You know,
Yeah.
I used to think animals were just some sort of like lower level being. Like I had no idea. I mean, I could look into his eyes and see all kinds of things. I'm like, this is crazy. But I want to talk a little bit more about some of the modalities that you just spoke about, kind of went through them.
Okay.
So I actually let's pick one and just kind of deep dive into that. Maybe the AO scan. Should we start with that one?
Sure. Okay, so AO scan is developed by Solex. And they used to have one of those big pieces of equipment that were only in practitioner offices. But as technology improves, the founder wanted it accessible and in the hands of everyone because he knows the future of health is frequency, and somebody shouldn't have to pay tens of thousands of dollars for healing, right?
Hmm.
So he doesn't make any claims because, we don't want to get in trouble.
Of course not.
But there's been a lot of studies and a lot of testimonials about what healing has taken place. So that tool is so powerful. There are different things. So here's what's interesting. Our voice carries our emotion. So if you um if you are suppressing some emotion, or if you're overcompensating for something, your voice tells on you.
But to
So
the naked ear, like we can hear it, or just with the AO scan?
so the AO scan picks it up. It compares it to 10,000 different tones
Wow, that's
and is
amazing.
able to see everybody should have a very balanced range.
Hmm.
And so it looks at this and it shows what notes are overused and what is underused. And it almost creates a personalized sound bath for you. And what that does is it entrains your frequencies. And I don't know if you know about entrainment, but I'll cover that briefly. People can look this up.
Okay.
Tesla did studies on this, as did UCLA. The UCLA study is pretty easy to find in YouTube, but they took palindromes and they'll set them all up and they'll be, rocking back and forth at different speeds. And within a couple of minutes, they all synchronize. That's called entrainment, which is also why it's so important who you surround yourself with. So anyhow, so if you play a harmonic frequency to yourself over and over, if you say positive affirmations to yourself over and over, if you fake it until you make it over and over, your body adjusts, your frequencies adjust and takes on those balanced harmonics, which is pretty amazing.
That is so amazing. And I have to tell you that that is something that I've worked for the past several years on because when I was an ENT physician and, working in surgery and all that, I really had the worst head trash. I mean, I used to, even though I was very successful, like the things and thoughts that I was telling myself internally were not successful thoughts. So it is not a surprise to me that I left and doing what I was doing. But what's so interesting is that now the thoughts that I tell myself are always so positive. And I say to people, I'm like, would you leave your trash in the kitchen for weeks and weeks and months and years? Like, if you wouldn't do that, then don't leave that trash in your head. Throw it out and replace it with something new and more positive.
It's so true. And they say, 95% of our thoughts are recycled every single day over and over 24/7, right? So we have to get rid of that stuff, but we can. And, and, Emoto did a ton of studies on just labeling water, right? That's another thing people can look on YouTube. Masaru Emoto, he studied water and the effects of playing classical music, heavy metal with, ick words, like, hateful words.
Mhm.
He also did studies with water in glass jars with rice, and how the jar labeled "I hate you," and then somebody says daily "I hate you," that jar versus the jar that had "I love you," the jar that said "I hate you," the rice molded, turned black. The "I love you" never went bad. Then if you relabel the "I hate you" after turning black to "I love you" and saying "I love you" and mean it, reverses.
Wow.
You
So it's almost, in essence, the more we tell ourselves terrible thoughts about ourselves, I hate you, we're almost like creating mold inside.
Yes,
I mean,
yes.
And
We're creating that noise, those imbalances, those awful frequencies.
wow. Well, and it really makes sense because if you look at a human being who truly loves themselves, I would say they look different. You could see it. You can
Yes.
see a human being that hates themselves. You could see a human being that loves themselves. You may not really understand it if you're not in tune to looking for those things, but I see it. I can look at a person from across the room and be like, that person does not like themselves. That is not a good vibration for me. They don't even have to be within my 6 feet anymore. Used to be that I have to get close. I can feel it from far. I can actually feel it from like in large spaces.
So you know what that is? That's not them, that's you. Your field is getting bigger.
Oh,
So when we hold a lot of negativity and traumas and whatever, our field tends to collapse inward.
wow, that's so cool. And then I've also noticed that people say this to me a lot now, that I've never been told this before. And they say things like, wow, your energy, I could really sense it. And I'm like, I could
Mhm.
sense it the minute you walked in the room. And I'm like,
Yes. Yes, because your field has gotten so big. As you heal, it gets bigger. You are truly filling the room.
that's so cool. And it's
Yeah.
so important for all of us to know this. I mean, life is a journey. We don't all just start in this position, but we can actively get to a place where we feel in harmony within ourselves. And that's a frequency. So I recently saw a video, we all know that love is a high, I mean, obviously shame, anger, guilt, fear, those are all clearly low frequencies. I mean, even when I say those words, I feel a low frequency.
Right.
But then you move on to the love and gratitude. And the other day I saw a video that said that authenticity is the highest frequency, even higher than love.
That
And
makes sense.
it does make sense. So truly, if you, and I feel like they're just parts of, we have to just hit each, part of this. Like we have to get to the point where we love ourselves, then we start to feel gratitude. And then when you feel those things, you actually have the courage to show yourself authentically. That takes a lot. And that's really so much of what the show is about because you can feel the frequency of authenticity way more than this facades.
As you're saying this, I'm getting this vision of imagine a pipe. And if you're not in alignment with yourself, that pipe kind of, isn't straight. It kind of, so you're not going to be able to flow love and gratitude and all the things out to the world that you are supposed to. So that makes total sense that alignment comes first. But
Mm-hmm.
I want to back up to a point that everything we've been talking about, even the voice scan, is about emotion, emotional state, right? It's hate,
Mm-hmm.
love, worry, shame. They're all emotions.
Mm-hmm.
And those emotions and our emotional state is what impacts the physical state for the negative or the positive. So the whole gist of it is when you heal the emotional state, you will automatically heal the physical state.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to offer hope to people that have engaged in relationships that have been abusive or just dysfunctional or healthy. We don't have to go through some huge ritual. We just have to look at every relationship, good or bad, as a life lesson. It's something to teach us to be more in alignment with who we are ourselves. Like a lot of times, I mean, you and I have been through divorces, and some of the relationships we got in after our divorces, we were so naive. We got married in our 20s or whatever, right? And we were clueless. We would definitely not pick those relationships today. And sometimes, we even get skin crawly and ick. Well, we just need to realize that that was part of that journey to hone in and be more authentic in who we are and how we select relationships. Actually, thank that person for showing showing you that in you. And that's it. And really release it. No hard feelings. Thank you and goodbye. Peace. you know?
It's such a great point because I think we can easily, and I've done this, like get into a place where I'm like, what did I do? What did I do to deserve this? But it's not that. It's just that we were supposed to learn specific lessons. And you're so right, because once you, it's almost like we have on a mask and we're attracting the wrong people into our lives because we're wearing a mask that's not authentic to us. So we're attracting something that's not in alignment. So what's so beautiful about being so authentic is now you can attract from a place of trueness. So meaning whoever and whatever I attracted in my 20s when I didn't really know who I was and was way too afraid to be authentic. I mean, I was always afraid of being this big version of myself because I felt like it was too big for everybody and I would be alone. Well, part of my journey has been just the acceptance of I don't even care anymore if I'm alone for the rest of my life because I'd rather have probably nobody, which is hard, but I came to terms with that, than and be in alignment with myself than have everybody around me and be wearing a mask, which is suffocating me.
Yes. I think that you've gone through cycles of that, which is really cool. Like
Hmm.
first your work, then your relationships. So it's like the constant peeling of the onion skin and honing. And I think it's a constant. I don't think we're ever at a point where no growth is possible. We always have growth. Life is always changing. We're always introduced to new, exciting things that like make our hearts sing, and
Hmm.
we have to adjust to accommodate that. But that's the beautiful part of life, right? That we have the space, and as long as we realize that we don't have to apologize for being our true selves. I mean, of course we want to be respectful and kind, but
Hmm.
I used to find myself apologizing for me, apologizing for talking a lot, or apologizing for giggling when other people didn't giggle because I get easily humored. So, or whatever it is, right? I would find myself saying, I'm sorry. And I'm like, why am I sorry? For being alive? I mean, really, there was nothing to be sorry for, right? So it takes reflection,
Hmm.
observation of our own actions and thoughts, which is truly what meditation is. A lot of people think meditation's this thing. Meditation is observing yourself, why you're thinking or doing what you're thinking or doing, and
Hmm.
trying to correct, improve, um, diffuse
Hmm.
those emotions, right?
Yeah.
It's so that we can take an eagle eye view of our own self and become less reactive.
Right. And it's even just an understanding of the emotions and why you're having them. I know
Right.
that I do this all the time. Yeah, I used to just react to the emotions. So now at least I don't do that. But now when these things come, I'm like, why am I so bothered by this? I wouldn't even word to use triggered anymore because to me,
Right.
triggered implies like I have no control over the thoughts. But I'll just, now I'm curious. So a thought comes into mind, something I feel like doesn't resonate with me, then I'm like, why is this? Why is this creating this emotion in me? Why is this happening? Why is it that I feel this way? So then I feel like that really goes into the alignment of like self mastery of understanding who you are. And with each layer of that, I uncover more about myself. Whereas I feel like when you're triggered, you're in some sort of like, tornado
Yeah.
of emotions that you can't even begin to understand.
It totally like now I actually when I call it button push. When somebody pushes my buttons, I know 99.9% of the time it's something I need to work on.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Right? Very, very rarely is it anything else.
So true, so true. It is just really an interesting thing. Like when you're pointing that finger, you got to look at those ones pointing right back at you every single time. There was another, I do want to just ask about, there was another something tongue that you mentioned a few minutes ago.
My tongue drum. So it's
I was like, as
um,
an ENT physician, I'm like, what is that?
yeah. It's actually the reason it's called tongue drum is the notes are shaped. There's like a cutout on this little drum. In fact, I have one here. Let me just show it.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, I want to see it. Because I know about the AO scan, just because that was
I
cool.
keep it handy. Well, anything with a positive frequency, honestly, like music. Oh, humming, humming. That
Hmm.
vibration in us, very healing. So if nothing else, if you're in a bad place, hum a good song.
And more
Yes.
so than singing.
Singing is good too, because again, you get the vibration through here.
Yeah.
But a lot of people don't have your beautiful voice. I'm just saying.
Well, I
All
don't
right.
know.
Okay. So this is a tongue drum. So you can see how it's shaped like a tongue, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So each one of these is a different note. And seriously, you can just different frequencies and it's healing. And again, this is something that animals are very attracted to.
Wait, so do you play it or I can
Yeah.
only.
Yeah. So it comes with little sticks and each sounds
Oh my
almost
God,
like
I
wind
love it.
chimes. Yeah, it sounds like wind chimes. So very healing.
Can I get it
Any
on Amazon?
Yes, and you can get cheap ones. I mean, they won't be tuned as, but who cares, right?
I
Um,
mean, that'd be so fun.
It is fun. I got it as a Christmas gift from somebody, and I love it. Actually, my sister, she saw it in New York City, somebody playing on the street, and she's like, my sister would love this.
That
And
is
she's
so
right.
I
Yeah.
love it. I didn't even know what that was. That's so cool. Now I'm sorry. I'm going backwards now
No,
again.
that's fine.
I want to. I'm all over the place today because I so much of. I feel like an hour wasn't. We said this. We knew it was not going to be enough, and I knew it wasn't. But I want to go back to the AO scan just
Okay.
because I think it deserves a little more attention because I find it really fascinating. Because when you first told me about it, I had to record 15 seconds of my voice and send
Right.
you the information, and then it spits out something, based on the voice. So explain the process a little more in depth because I think since we're limited on time, we'll have
Okay.
you back another time to go into some of the other frequency stuff, but I want to know in depth how that works because to be honest with you, I don't still really understand it.
Okay. So it registers your voice and it compares it to those 10,000 tones. And using that, it knows what's out of range. So if somebody is in a perfect healing state emotionally, they're going to have a very well balanced range of notes in their voice.
Okay.
So the if we overcompensate for emotion, it makes certain notes overused. When
Right.
we're suppressing emotion, it makes certain notes underused. So
But
it
it'll
looks
tell you, but like it gives you some kind of reading that like
it
different
gives
things you've told me over time that it says this or that. So it
Okay, there's multiple parts. So the first part is the voice analysis
got it.
that creates the sound bath basically for you to help with your emotional state. But there's another aspect that based on your voice, it does a body scan and it looks at all the systems in your body and it looks at what's off. Well, because our emotional state is constantly changing, that's where you want to do it and look at trends. So you don't want to have, for instance, one day it showed like I had a cyst in my ovary and I was like, ah! And this is when I was first learning, right? I was like, oh my gosh. And I was told, no, calm down. You have to look. And if it's persistent,
Okay.
over the course of a week, then do something about it. But it often detects things way before any labs or any pain. So it's kind of pretty amazing.
And what's so cool about that is like, I think some people could look at this and be like, this is woo woo, blah, blah, blah. But if you look at it from a scientific standpoint of everything, So again, we know our thoughts have frequencies and our emotions have frequencies, which I truly believe is often aligned with our physical state. So we that all makes sense. But now each disease state has a different frequency, I guess, right? That's what you.
And your internal organ systems, just like your chakras, emit differently, right? And when we have blockages in our meridians, right, and a chakra isn't properly functioning, meaning our energetic field isn't flowing as it should,
Mhm.
any stuck energy is going to result in the knots in the back, the inflammation, which then over time translates into sickness, right? Inflammation unchecked over time translates to sickness. So it is really amazing how everything is interconnected.
And it's been studied and shown that people with a high vibration actually don't get sick. I don't know if they never get sick, but probably just not as much. And I've noticed that even the changes in me, like I used to feel sick when I was in my ENT practice. I mean, maybe I wasn't physically sick, but realized that my cancer manifested itself then, while I was in that medical training and all that. And I used to feel not well. Maybe I didn't have an identifiable illness, but I have to say I never felt great. My vibration was so low at that point in my life that I didn't even realize it. I can only reflect backwards and see how much of a shift that it is. So to me, it really makes sense that if we keep that like low vibration up for long periods of time, it's going to affect certain organ systems, very likely with the area that maybe you're not expressing your true self, or where those
Exactly.
emotions
100%.
are stored, past traumas, past life traumas, who knows? I mean, I know,
Yes.
some people maybe who are new to this concept may feel like, wow, that just seems like crazy. And to be honest with you, when I first heard it, it seemed a little crazy to me too. But then when I started to understand more and more, I realized it really all makes sense.
It does. And back to Ellen McCusick's work, she, and this has been studied over and over, that 5 to 6 foot torrent that most people, torus field that most people have. It, like I said, it gets bigger. Some people have bigger fields, but the further you get from your body to the edge of your field, that's infancy. The closer to yourself is present time in your field. So if you had trauma as an infant, you might not even recognize, but that is noise stuck in your field on the outskirts. And that's what some of the frequency healing does, is it breaks through, it combs through and entrains some of that stuck energy into harmonic frequencies. So a lot of people that don't know that they've had certain traumas or issues or stuck things, after sessions, they feel better. They don't know why. They just know they feel better. They're finally able to sleep for the first time in years or whatever. And I say, kudos. I don't think that we're at a point where we truly understand all of it. And I think that's okay. I don't think we need to, as long as we know it's a positive experience. It is science based. You don't need to feel, a lot of people based on their religious affiliation get a little nervous, right?
Mhm.
And so I would say that, I've had some Christians reach out to me with
Sorry, Mike.
no worries, a little nervousness. And I say, if you look, God vocally spoke existence. If you go back to the Bible, what is speech? What is speaking? It's frequencies,
Hmm.
right? Music,
So sorry.
that's another frequency.
I have my
At
phone
least
on
it's
airplane mode and it's still coming through, which is crazy.
no worries. So yes, I would say that if people look into the science, they would feel a lot better. Even more so, let's go back to the AO scan. There is a component that actually looks at blood. it actually has a lipid panel, and you think, how in the world you don't give blood and you're giving lipid results? People have gone and gotten labs done at like Quest Diagnostics or whatever and have compared it to their AO scan output for accuracy.
Wow, that is
Yeah.
pretty freaking amazing. I
Yes.
mean, and again, frequencies are just, I don't think I ever understood how important that was. And this is just, to me, fascinating stuff. And again, even when you were getting into this AO scan and everything, I found it fascinating, but I don't think I really understood. But it has been very accurate because there are times where I'm feeling something weird and I've asked you to run the scan.
Yeah.
And it's weirdly accurate as to what is going on in my emotional state.
Yeah. Sometimes I look at the results and I'm like, yeah. I
Yeah.
don't want to admit to it, right? It reads your mail, and yeah,
Yeah,
it's
it's
pretty.
really pretty cool. So actually, just one thing I'd like to share is that I have been going through a lot of, emotional purging, and again, there's a lot of this I didn't really understand. But as your life changes, we have to sort of purge some of these things. Some of them may be even subconscious and we don't realize it. So I've been noticing that for the past several months, I've just had these moments of like purging of these emotions, which I didn't even know I had. So I had a similar event, last week or something. And that was when I had you run the scan. And I was like, wow, that's crazy. Because every time I have these purges, one thing I've noticed is that I don't even understand why, because I don't consciously know something is going on. But then the next morning, I wake up and I'm like, oh my God, I feel so much better. Like I didn't understand what that was all about, but it's obviously my emotions are purging, making room for new things, which is great. But it's a process and it isn't always easy to understand. You think something's wrong with you a lot of the time.
Yeah, a lot. And again, that's back to that conditioning, right? And we always blame ourselves and we think something's wrong with ourselves, right? So it's even observing that response, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it's very interesting.
Well, and I think there's a real space where we could tap into that we make everything okay. And that was really what I decided at the end of this last purge, which, I clearly more are going to come and it's okay. And instead of, I think one of the things that always surprises me is that I'm generally very happy and on a high vibration. So when these little, I want to call them blips, occur, I think something is wrong. So now I'm assigning some sort of negative value to something, which then makes everything worse. And so I've decided that whatever happens is fine. I'm just going to be an observer of the process and not assign any meaning or value to it, whether it's good or it's bad. It just is. Now, once I
Yeah.
decided that, it really took the pressure off.
It I think it would be good that every time we get a blip, I'm going to try to do this myself, is think, oh, that's just the way to stop and smell the roses. Like for some reason, I'm missing something because I'm plowing through life. And
Mhm.
this blip is that yellow flashing light. So I will take notice, stop and smell the roses, and maybe, adjust my path, my journey, right?
Mhm.
So I thank you for that. I'm gonna actually use that and look at it that way.
Well, it's true because like you don't know, like again, sometimes that actually happens so you do slow down because I do tend to get very busy. And when I have those states of emotion, I kind of can't do a whole lot. So then I'm just chilling. So either it's designed to make me chill or whatever, or, it doesn't really matter. I'm just going to be an observer of the whole process. And I think in life, when we take that route to just start observing what's happening instead of assigning so much meaning to it, it really makes a lot of difference. I just noticed that for me, that's what I try to do. And I would say a lot of the situations, but I'm not always perfect because none of us are. We're always in a state of evolution. We're always growing and getting to be better versions of ourselves. So,
Yeah, it is a constant learning. And also I think it's easier to see something in someone else than to yourself, right? Like I love having you as a sounding board because I could reach out and you'll say, I think, and you're spot on. And then once you say it, it resonates with me. But yet it would have taken me longer to figure that out for myself.
Well, and I think that, one thing to recognize is that, going back to what you were saying about like what we want in friendships evolves. I think in our 20s and stuff like that, we're just looking for companionship, somebody to go party with, do fun stuff with. And as we get older, it really shifts for a lot of us, especially those of us who are more conscious and awakening. For me, I no longer want superficial relationships at all. I have no room for them in my life. I don't find them satisfying at all. I'm also looking for someone to mirror me, somebody that I can really share all the authentic parts of myself and not feel ashamed or criticized in any way. So those are things I'm looking for. And I love, like what you're saying, is that when I ask you something, I want that feedback of what that is. Because you're right, it can take us a lot longer to reflect on it in our own time. But if you have somebody there who's also in tune and understands you, who you feel safe with, then everything shifts, because now you're making changes faster in your own life. And that's, again, why it's so important to surround yourself with the right people.
It is. And also, safe, like you said, safe is so important, but also to come to a point where you're not offended, right? Because if a true friend will call you on your crap,
Oh, yeah.
and you
Totally.
have to be okay with that because they want the best for you,
Yeah.
right?
Even if
And
it means having difficult conversations and saying
exactly
things, which is totally fine. So, but we're about running out of time. It has been such a pleasure. For those of you guys watching, there's Danielle's Instagram handle down below. So follow her, because, she's really just kind of getting started on this journey, which is amazing. But, it takes us time to figure out like all of the things. So she's working on her website, but she'll be posting all that stuff on her Instagram. And I can't tell you how grateful I am to be able to have this conversation with you. And just really, I want to deep dive into some more of this. So maybe in a couple of months, as you get going further, I will have you on again.
thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Well, you have a great rest of your Sunday, and what's left of it at this point. And I think I can speak for all of us who are watching. We can't wait to see what you create.
Thanks so much. Have a good one.
Bye.
Bye.
All right. I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. I mean, it is just such a pleasure for me to connect with all these people from like my past and my present, and, and see these future versions of everybody. And we can see the transitions as they are happening. So, again, thank you so much for tuning in every week on Gloves Off. I so appreciate that all of you are here, and we will see you next week for another episode.